Hello, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to today's video, which is my February TBR. February is a month of commitments. I have 2 book club books, I have a readathon, and I have a read-along, potentially, that I am trying to participate in. So there are quite a few books. Several of them are quite chunky, so we'll see how this goes. I don't have a lot of confidence in myself that I'll be able to read all of these books, but we will give it a good old college try. So why don't we dive right in? So why don't we start off by talking about the books for the book clubs, the first of which is the Found in Translation book club that I co-host with Noelle and Annie. And for the month of February, we chose Small Country by Gail Fay. Now, this is a fairly short book. I think I'm going to listen to it as an audiobook, but it is the story of this young boy who is living in Burundi in the early 1990s when his life and life of everyone as he knows it is turned upside down by the civil war and genocide that hit Burundi and Rwanda. And I was 2 at the time that this book is set, so I don't really have much information on what happened in Rwanda. Unfortunately, my only point of reference really is Hotel Rwanda, and so I'm looking forward to reading this book and getting a little bit more of a perspective and understanding of what is happening. In case I didn't mention it, this book is translated from French, and the live show for this one will actually be right here on this channel. I believe it's the first Tuesday in March, so I will put that information in the description box for you. But it is a book that I am genuinely interested and looking forward to reading. The next book is the book that we're reading for my work book club, and that is Passing by Nella Larson. This is a reread for me, but this is a book that I have recommended to literally everyone. I think it's up there with like Catherine the Great at this point for books that I have recommended. If you have not read it, I urge you to pick up a copy. But it is written by Nella Larson during the Harlem Renaissance, and the story is about these 2 white passing black women who were childhood friends but have been separated over the course of their lives, and now they come back into contact with one another, and it's really about everything that happens as a result of their reconnecting. And this book was such an unexpected favorite. I'd never heard anyone talk about it before, but it just struck a chord. It is a very slim book, but it packs such a punch. The ending of this book, too, I need more people to read it just so I can talk about the ending at this point. So I am honestly looking forward to the work book club and that conversation. But I highly, highly recommend it. It was one of my favorite books of 2020, and it's just a gem of a like modern classic and a novel written during the Harlem Renaissance. The next book is from my seasonal TBR, so it's not a commitment per se, but I've really wanted to read it, and that is Brown Girl, Brown Stones by Polly Marshall. And this is again a book that I've never heard anyone talk about, but it is a modern classic, and I feel like it's a book that I'm going to connect with on some level. It's set during the Great Depression in World War II in Brooklyn, and the characters are from the Caribbean. And the main character is kind of in the middle of her 2 parents and their different desires. Her mother wants to live in America, buy that house, live the American dream, and her father wants to go back to his beloved island, which I believe is Barbados in this case. But seeing as my family is from Jamaica, I'm always really interested in stories about immigrants from the Caribbean. And so this one just seems like it's going to be right up my alley. And as I said, it's a book that I have never heard anyone talk about, so I do want to give it a shot. The next books I want to talk about are the books that I am trying to read for the BLACKATHON. February is Black History Month, and as you will have guessed already by the books that I just talked about, I am trying to predominantly focus on books by Black authors this month. So I'm not going in order of the actual prompts, but you'll see why in a minute. The first prompt is to read a book that is not set in the US, the UK, or Canada, and the book that I chose is A Girl is a Body of Water by Jennifer Nansabuga Makumbi, and I feel like I listened to someone pronounce her name, and I know I butchered it, so I apologize. So the book is set in Uganda, and there's mention of Ugandan folklore in it. The main character, I think, is like a 12 or 13-year-old girl, and from what I've read, there seems to be something of a feminist vibe here. It seems to have a lot to do with her relationship with other women, but also this like second self that they call the first woman that has been all but lost to women. So there's something kind of mystifying and mythological going on here that is really, really fascinating. So I literally just got this book in January and am very, very eager to read it. The next prompt is a book with a neon cover, and honestly, this was pretty much as neon as I could get. Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. This book has been on my bookshelf for years. I've heard so many good things about it, and I want to read it and just haven't gotten around to it. It is a Booker Prize winner. I feel like everyone and their mother has read it, save for me. So I'm going to fix that. It is about the lives of Black British families, and there's supposed to be this really rich cast of characters, and I'm here for it. As I said, I've heard nothing but good things about it, so I'm very excited about this one. And then the reason that I haven't talked about the first prompt yet, which is to read a book that explores the duality of blood and found family, is because I honestly don't know how to know that about a book before I've read it. 'Tis the problem. I love stories about found families, but I feel like I don't necessarily see that description in like the synopsis or the back cover of a book when I pick it up. But I am hoping that one of the books that I'm planning to read this month actually fulfills that prompt. Maybe one of the books I already mentioned, or one of the books that I am just going to tell you about now. The next book is Moon and the Mars by Kia Corcoran, with this stunning cover that is unfortunately marred by the sticker I need to take off. But this is a book that I am really excited to read. It is a really chunky book at that. It is about a young girl, which isn't a normal thing for me, but I realize that at least 3 of the books that I'm talking about this month are about children under the age of like 16. So I don't know what's going on this month. But this is a book that is set in the mid-1800s in the Five Points district of Manhattan. It's a book that I think spans like 7 years or so, and really is going to touch on the racial tensions before the outbreak of the Civil War, the economic depression of that particular neighborhood, the war itself, riots, and I'm fascinated because I feel like any time I have read Civil War related fiction, it has been really focused on the South and everything happening there. This takes place in my own backyard. It takes place in Manhattan a couple hundred years ago, not even a couple hundred years ago. So because of the different setting, I'm really curious about what is going to happen. And I have heard of the Five Points district, but I don't actually know that much about it. So that's, again, another draw for this book. So we'll see how it goes. The next book is Somebody's Daughter by Ashley C. Ford. It is a memoir, and I'm very excited to finally pick this book up for a number of reasons. 1, I've heard really good things about it. 2, I realized it is February and I have yet to pick up a nonfiction book to read, so I need to fix that. And C, it just sounds like nothing I have ever read before, which is definitely a draw. It's about this young woman growing up with her father in prison and how she grapples with the reality of that. And I don't think, or I can't recall, having ever read a nonfiction that deals with incarceration. So that's something that I do want to read about, learn a little bit more about, and as I said, I have heard really positive things about this memoir, so I do want to give it a read. The only book I think on this list that is not written by a Black author is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, which I think I'm going to try to read as part of the Brontelong, which is a year-long endeavor to read all of the books by the Bronte sisters. And so February is the month where they're reading Jane Eyre. I have read Jane Eyre probably no fewer than a half dozen times, but it has probably been a decade or so since I have reread it. But in January, I read Wide Sargasso Sea, which is a prequel about the woman in the attic. And so now I'm kind of in this Jane Eyre mood. I do have a copy of the book up on the shelf up there with all of my other classics, but I do think, to kind of change things up a little bit, that I'm going to listen to it as an audiobook. I might regret that because the audiobook is like 19 or 20 hours long, but we shall see. I feel like that would be a nice, different way to read the book. And honestly, Jane Eyre was a book that I have always enjoyed, but there is a lot of colonialism that people have not addressed in that book. So it is definitely a problematic fave, I would say. But I do want to read that, and I will be participating in the Brontelong throughout the year. I think this is probably the only time that I am rereading a book for the Brontelong. The other times that I'm kind of dipping in are to read the books that I haven't read by the Bronte sisters, which I think it's maybe 2 or 3 that I have left. So we shall see. But that is the other book that I'm going to attempt to read in February. So yeah, those are the books that I am trying to read in February. I think it's 7 or 8 books, which is a lower number than I usually go for my monthly TBRs. I think I usually aim for 10, but since several of these books are quite chunky, I do feel like I need to be a little bit gentle and kind to myself in that way, but I do have other books kind of in mind if I somehow miraculously get through all of these. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!